There's more. The Big Bang Theory is not the only problem that's out there. Let's take a look at some of the other problems. Is the Earth billions of years old? Well, I showed you some pretty solid evidence, didn't I? That the Earth was indeed old. What if I told you there's a problem with all that evidence? Let me give you an example. The age of the Earth cannot be scientifically determined. It's impossible. Let me tell you why. You see, if we take a look at everything, in order to use our math, we had to have actually been there in order to be able to make sure our calculations were correct. And since nobody was there, there is no way to test our mathematics. Which means, let's take a look at that light. Is that light really billions of years old in order for it to get to planet Earth? Well, let me show you the answer to that for the creationists. You ready? Let me ask you a first question. This is for all you Bible scholars out there. For everyone that understands God's Word and has memorized Genesis chapter... No, you didn't have to memorize Genesis chapter 1. I'm just kidding. But you should know a few simple facts, and especially you kids. Let's see if Kimberly Jones has been teaching you properly. You ready? Has she been teaching you creation well? Here we go. What day was light created? 6 days in creation. What day did God make light? The first day, right? Day 1. You guys all passed. Very good. Very good, Jerusalem. You did an excellent job there. Now, what day was the sun, moon, and stars created? Wasn't 5th. It was day 4. Very good. See, they all passed again. Very good. Day 4, sun, moon, and stars were created. Oh, wait a minute. Jonas, that means you're telling us that God made the light before He made the star. Bingo! You see, God is so powerful, He was able to make the light far before He ever made the source. So see, He already made the light to travel from that star to planet Earth. And then on day 4, He decided to put something there that would shine the light. That's how incredible our God is. Day 1, He makes light. Day 4, He creates everything else. The distance of the star doesn't tell us the age of anything. It only tells us how far away the star is. So God made the light first, then God made the source, which means, folks, we don't have a problem at all. Well, what about the other evidence? What about all those layers? Right? We find those fossils in those layers. In fact, someone came up to me and said, is that really true? Do they really have all those fossils? Let me show you what the evolutionists do in order to explain that. What about all those layers on the Earth? Well, how do we know the age of the layer? Right? How do we know the age of the layer? Well, you go to the fossil. And the fossil is supposed to be, starting with an amoeba, working all its way up to a human, tells us the age of the layer. Well, wait a minute. There's a question that we should ask. Well, how do you tell the age of the fossil? Oh, well, you look at the layer that it's in. It's down there at the bottom, so it's got to be really old. Wait a minute. Let me see if I get this straight. You have to tell the age of the layer. You go to the fossil. You find the age of the fossil, you have to go to the layer. But in order to find the layer, you got to find the fossil. In order to find the fossil, you got to... Does that make sense? That's called circular reasoning. In other words, it never comes to an end. We can't find the age of anything using the fossil record. Oh, but they say amoebas are on the very bottom. Humans are on the very top. Okay, show me. Show me one geological column in one place on this planet where that is actually true. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, that that geological column of the amoeba on the bottom and humans on the top with every evolutionary step in the middle doesn't exist? It hasn't existed anywhere. In fact, some of those layers where they find amoebas, just below it is something called the Cambridge layer. And the Cambridge layer has every single animal noted on the planet that we have discovered, found in that fossil layer. It is literally an explosion of invertebrates, vertebrates, and every animal you can imagine. It was as if some huge catastrophe happened to catch everything in mud and water and trap it there for us to find. Wait a minute, huge catastrophe? revolving mud and water. Gosh, that sounds like a flood. Ding, 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 ding. That's the right answer. The flood and Noah's Ark helps us to understand how we get the fossil record, not their geological cause. Well, they say, well, wait a minute. It takes 1,000 years to make rocks into layers. What happened, what they say is that dust settles from space and it lands on Earth, and then more and more amounts of dust settle on top of that and compress that dust into rock, and that takes thousands of years. That's how we can tell the age of the layers, which is how we can tell the age of the fossils. No, you can't. Because if it takes 1,000 years for dust to turn into rock, how in the world are you going to get a fossil? Is something going to sit around for thousands of years waiting to be buried? No! You're going to have floods, you're going to have rain, you're going to have animals, you're going to have scavengers, you're going to have all these different things that are going to take those fossils away before it ever gets trapped. You have to be able to have something that's going to trap those fossils before they can get away, something like a flood. Oh. Now it makes sense as to why we have all those fossils. So what's the best explanation for the fossil record? The flood, not evolution. So the age can't be scientifically determined by those layers, but what about that rock? That rock, wow, that rock was, that stumped me for a while. How in the world could I take a look at a rock and calculate to make sure if it is half uranium and half lead, how in the world can I know that that rock isn't 4.5 billion years old? What about that rock? What about radioactive decay? Let me give you the answer to that, and I can do so using simple math. Let me ask you a question. What is 2 plus 2? Very good. Excellent job. You guys all get an A for the day. Okay, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Very simple. If 2 plus x equals 4, what does x equal? 2, right? Because 2 plus 2 equals 4. You guys can even graduate into algebra. Okay? Hear that, parents? They're all smart enough to go into algebra. You should keep them studying so that they can do well in school. Here we go. Here's another tough one. 2 plus 3 plus 4. 9, right? Wow, you guys are really smart now. How about this? You guys have done really good so far. What about this? If 2 plus 4 plus x equals 9, what does x equal? 3. Very good. See, you guys are sharp. Now, here's one more. You ready? If 2 plus x plus y equals 9, what does x and y equal?
3.
We don't know. Because x could be a 4 and y could be a 3. But x could be a 3 and y could be a 4. Or x could be a 2 and y could be a 5. Or x could be a 1 and y could be a 6. Or if we start getting into fractions and decimals, oh my goodness, is there all these combinations? There's no way. There is an infinite number of possibilities. Which means, folks, if we have 2 variables, can we solve the problem?
No.
No. Let me show you the equation that they use in order to figure out how old the rock is. It is called A equals P to the RT, P times E to the RT. Let me explain what all of that means. A is the original amount of uranium that's within the rock. The amount that they know now that's in the rock. They can test that. They can shoot a laser through that rock and they can see just how much of that rock is uranium and just how much of that rock is lead. Okay? So they can run a test for A. They know A. P is what's called the principal. P is the principal. That's the original amount of uranium that was in the rock when it was created. Folks, do they know the original amount of uranium that was in the rock when it was created? No. They weren't there when it was created. So they can't test to see if they're right. Which means, what are they doing in order to know that amount? They're guessing. Is guessing good math, boys and girls? No. I always got it wrong when I guessed on tests. But here they're trying to say, we can guess the original amount. So guessing is not good. E is a number. E is an actual number that we know. It's 2.17 blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on forever and ever and ever. It's like pi. 3.14 blah, 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 blah. It just keeps going and going and going. E is the exact same thing. It's 2.17 blah, 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 blah. Right? Just keeps going and going and going and going. Right? So E they actually know. It really is a number. R is the rate of decay. It's how fast or how slow it takes uranium to change into lead. Question: can uranium decompose faster or slower? Or does the rate always stay the same? The answer is it can decompose faster. That's called a nuclear meltdown. We can create nuclear meltdowns. We can be able to increase the decay of uranium. That's how we get nuclear weapons. Which means, do we know for sure that the rate of decay is very slow in uranium? No, we don't know that at all. So here we automatically have two variables. And we're searching for T. That's what we want to know. Which means we don't know what P is. We don't know what R is. Can we solve for T? No. It's mathematically impossible without guessing. And again, is guessing good math? It's not. Is the Earth billions and billions of years old? The evidence is poor at best. Let me give you some evidence for how it's young. You see, folks, there is a magnetic field that's around this Earth. The magnetic field goes from the north magnetic pole to the south magnetic pole, and it has charged particles within that field called the magnetosphere. The magnetosphere we've been able to test for the last 150 years. And we have seen over the last 150 years, this magnetic field exponentially decreases. In other words, it's going to get closer and closer and closer to zero without ever hitting zero. And it does so at a constant rate that we've been able to test so far. If we were able to take the magnetosphere and go backwards in time, and we were to continue to increase that magnetic field exponentially all the way back through time, we would find that at about 10,000 years, our Earth would have been a magnetic star. That magnetic field would have been so charged that it literally would have liquefied the crust of our planet, making it impossible for any life to have survived. Which means, can our Earth be that old? No. The dust on the moon. The dust on the moon. When we first landed the Apollo on the moon, the scientists said, tell all your children, don't stay home, send them to school, don't let them watch the TV. Because they were afraid that as we landed on the moon, what would happen is there would be so much dust from all those space particles that it literally would create, according to their calculations, based on the age that they thought the universe was, a layer of dust 6 feet thick. That when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, he would have disappeared into the dust. And so they said, don't let anybody watch it. Well, when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, do you know how much dust there was? Not even 6 inches. Wow. That must mean the Earth is pretty young to not have all that dust on the moon. Last is the Cambridge layer. We talked about that. If the geological column were to be true, then the Cambridge layer shouldn't exist, but it does. So is our Earth old or young? Young. It's most likely pretty young. Which means, could the Earth have been created with a Big Bang? No. Not unless you say God spoke and bang, it happened. Could we have a very old Earth? No, strike two. Strike two. So since two things cannot be right, evolution already can be rejected. But there's more. More? There's more. You ready? The Bible recommends that the Earth is pretty young. Exodus 20, verse 8 through 11, I have it up here. It says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Hugh Ross is one of those people that says the earth is really, really old, and the Bible really does prove it. Well, if the Bible really does prove it, wait a minute. If that means the Lord created everything in 6 days and rested on the seventh, so we should work for 6 days and rest on the seventh, and it's really old, then what does that mean? We work 6 billion years and rest a billion? A little bit of a problem. I'm going to believe what the Bible actually says on this one. That the earth is not 6 billion years old, but it is 6,000 to 7,000 years, based upon the biblical account and the evidence that I just gave.